Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be sharing a little bit of food prep and food preservation that I've done in my kitchen over the weekend. A friend was able to give me a lot of stuff that she had extra wise, and you'll see more of it in the clips, but I had several bunches of bananas, 10, 15, sweet potatoes, 4 pretty big plastic containers of big beautiful blueberries. And what else was there? Blueberry, raspberries and grapes. The raspberries you won't see here because we ate them prior to me starting food prep because it was just 2 of those small pint containers and we really like those. But yeah, I thought I would go back because it is now Tuesday, so I'm going to jump back. I realized when I was editing the video that I did not do an intro. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Carrie and I talk about recipes, canning, food preservation, all those kind of things that you do in the kitchen. So hopefully you'll like what you see. If you do, subscribe, give me a thumbs up because it really helps. And yeah, so let's go back and show the few things that I done. And then at the end, I'll come back and show you how everything was because things got really crazy. Life happened. We're getting ready for the fair season here. So getting entries ready, doing food preservation, lots of stuff to tie up summer. Started homeschool back, so life happened, and I forgot to finish up those over the weekend. So it's Tuesday. Let's jump back to Friday and take a look at what all we did. See you soon. All right, guys, so I have 2 pounds of cherry tomatoes that I mentioned earlier that I'm going to put on the dehydrator. They were just small cherry tomatoes. You can see I have already cut most of them in half. And they look about like this. So what I do is I just take a knife and just cut them right down the middle and cut them in half like that. And I'll just do a few more here. And this is just going to make them easier to dehydrate. It'll take less time if you do this. The one thing about your tomatoes is you want to make sure they are very fresh. You don't want them to be mushy or any kind of thing like that because you want to dehydrate the freshest of fresh. Okay, so these are really fresh. There's no bad spots on them. They're not soft. They have a tender skin, but it's also still, you can tell it's in good shape. It's not going to bust if you drop one, things like that. So these are in good shape. The next thing I do, I'm going to put some Italian seasoning that I made up on these just to flavor them a little bit more. I actually seen Darcy over at the Purposeful Pantry, I believe. Purposeful Pantry, if I can get it out. Do this, and I thought it was a great idea. What we're going to do is dry these, and then I will end up, some of them I may leave whole, or I may actually grind them up in tomato powder. This is some tomato powder that I've got in there with the oxygen absorber. This is a lot of tomatoes, you guys, in this pint jar. And this is mostly it's a lighter color, mostly the yellow variety, mixed with some red. So we have that. So I'm going to go ahead and season these. There's really no salt. It's mainly just some Italian seasoning and a little bit of stuff like that. So not a lot. Just going to do that. And then I'm going to toss it a little bit. And you don't have to do this. You can just leave yours plain with no seasoning. And I'm just doing a little bit like that too. Okay, and so that's what they look like. There's no oil in these. I had rinsed them really good, made sure they were clean, no, holes, no bug bites, anything like that. And that's how they look. And the next thing we're gonna do is put them in our tray. And you're gonna put them up, cut side up. And you just do them like this. Clean hands, always work with clean hands. You can wear gloves if you'd like to, but I just wash my hands really good with soap and water. Alright, you don't want them stacked. You want a nice single layer so that they'll dry evenly. And of course, some of the tomatoes are smaller than others, so that is going to, some of them may take a little bit longer. We'll just wash them. I'm going to dry these at 140 degrees is what the recipe I follow says. And it usually takes 10 to 18 hours, depending on how big the tomatoes are, how juicy they were. So I'll have to come back later after I'm taking them off, show you what they look like, and also tell you how long it took. So I just use a Nesco food dehydrator. So it's not a super fancy one. I think I got it, oh goodness, probably 7-8 years ago, maybe even longer, and it cost me, I want to say I paid $60 or $70 for it at the most. So I do want eventually to have a nice Excalibur or something like that, but you know what? Right now I'm grateful for what I have, and it does the job. So there we go. We're just going to start with another tray, and I'm just going to get these all set up. I'll come back and show you in a minute after I get them all set up and how they look. Okay, I don't want to keep you on there too long, just me doing these tomatoes. All right, guys, I got it all set up. I got 3 trays. I put these on my mesh liners just so they hopefully be easier to get off. So that are 3 trays of those Italian seasoned flavored tomatoes. Hopefully those will do okay. Those are a little tight there, but spread them out a little bit more since I won't be moving them. Okay, so I am going to get the lid on these. Remember, I'm going to set it to 140, and it's going to go, I'm going to keep an eye on it, but I figure it'll take probably 10, 12, maybe even 14 hours. And we'll come back, and when I get these done, I'll come back and show you what they look like. So let me get this over there and get it plugged in, and then we'll work on, we got some bananas to process today and blueberries, so we'll see what we're going to hit next. Okay, guys, so you can see my dehydrator back there. It is working. So we just got those tomatoes or cherry tomatoes on. The next thing I'm going to work on preserving today are blueberries. I did, a friend gave me 4 of these blueberries, and they are about 1 pound and 8 ounces, and I actually weighed them out, so that's true. So I'm going to process 3 pounds of them. I already washed them, made sure there's no stems or any bad ones, anything like that. But just look at this, guys. Look at that. Are those like huge? It's like the size of a quarter, right? Like some of them vary. Look at that. Those are huge. And they are pretty sweet. So I am going to be putting the berries up a couple of different ways. Like for this first 3 pounds, I'm going to use a recipe from the home preserving book from Ball. I'll put a link to this below for my affiliate link so you can just take a look at it if you don't already have it. It's called the Complete Book of Home Preservation or Home Preserving. There's about 400 different recipes in here, so this is a really good book, especially if you're new and need a lot of help. This is great. It's going to be all safe canning processes too. So on page 144, 145, there is how to can fresh berries in syrup. So we're going to follow the blueberry recipe, and I'm actually going to do hot pack, which is what it recommends for blueberries. So basically the first step you're going to do is you're going to need a big pot. And let me see if my husband, can you pin them down real quick? We'll show you real quick. I'm going to put these berries in the pot. Maybe he can, let's put them on. Oh, sorry guys. Let's see if we can get you pinned down a little bit. Anyway, we'll do this. I'll scoot over some. So we're just going to pour this 3 pounds of cleaned and washed blueberries in this stock pot. This is just the first thing you do. Now the recipe says you can use 1 to 2 cups of sugar. I don't like to can with a lot of sugar, so I'm just going to use 1 cup. Now I will tell you one of the tips in the book, and I've heard this many times before, is the sugar is what helps the blueberries hold their color over a long period of time. Now I do a lot of baking over the winter for our family, as well as like Anthony's extended family and even some clients, friends of mine that buy from me all year long. So these will be used up in different things for them and cobblers and things like that. So what it tells you to do on the hot pack version, which they recommend for blueberries because they hold their shape pretty well, is you put in the berries and the sugar, which I'm doing 1 cup. You can do up to 2 cups. And then you put a lid on it. And we're going to let that set, whoops, sorry guys. We're going to let that set for 2 hours, it says. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to macerate the berries, which is a really fancy term for it's going to bring out some juices in the berries before we put it on the stove and cook it a little bit. So that's our second project. While this is doing its thing with the sugar, I probably am going to work on, well, I'll tell you what, I'll show you what else I have to do today, and we'll try and figure out what I'm going to do with it. So let me set this aside for 2 hours, and we'll come back to that later. Okay, guys. Whew, I look pretty bad today. Got up and jumped right in the kitchen after just throwing my hair up to keep out all the food. But I was going to show you what I have left to preserve and trying to figure out kind of together what we're going to do. So she also gave me all these bananas, which are organic bananas. Some of them are a little bit more green, so we'll probably leave these out for my son to eat on. I'm not a big banana fan, so I may not eat any of those, but some of them are turning, as you can see, starting to turn. So probably what I will do with those, I need to weigh them out. Maybe I'll try and weigh them and tell you how much it was later, but I probably will. I don't like dehydrated bananas. I just don't like the texture of them. So probably what I'm going to do is make some banana bread and freeze it, or I'm going to just peel the bananas and put them in freezer bags and put them in the refrigerator for later on this winter when I do make banana bread. So there are also these sweet potatoes, which are those flowers she gave me too. Are they not gorgeous? Let's see if I can get you closer. Look how pretty they are. Very pretty. Anyway, these sweet potatoes are made for the microwave. We have a microwave back there. If you've been watching me very long, you may already know this, but it doesn't work at all. It hasn't worked for years, and I just, instead of getting a new one, yes, I'm that cheap sometimes, we just have learned to do without it. So we are actually going to use these as sweet potato fries in the air fryer. Today is what I've decided. So I'm going to cut the plastics off, peel them, chop them up, and make the sweet potato fries probably for lunch. And then we did also get 1 container of grapes. I honestly could do those in the simple syrup in the canner, but I think since it's just 1, I am going to just leave them and let my son eat on them if it doesn't, if they don't start to go bad. So yeah, and so that would leave me with these 2 packs of blueberries. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. Let me turn this way so the light's better. I may go ahead and put them in just some hot water, do a hot pack, because that recipe is in the ball book as well. You can basically just put your fruit in a jar and pour hot boiling water over it, and then water bath it for 15 minutes. Either pints or quarts, same 15 minutes. So I may do that, because that way if you do them without syrup or anything like that, bad lighting, sorry, it's kind of weird today. If you do them like that, then you could just pull them out and use them in bread and stuff like that. They will not be sweetened, they'll just be blueberries. So they may lose color over time, but I may do something like that. We'll see, or I may make something for church on Sunday with them. We'll just see how the day goes. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and peel and chop the sweet potatoes for lunch later today. It's about 9:30, and then I'll come back in a couple hours and show you how to go forward with the blueberries. Okay guys, so I'd check in with you a little bit. So we got probably about 30 to 40 minutes left on the blueberries to make sure that they are all good and ready to put on the stove and get them ready for our hot pack. Right now I'm just processing those grapes that I showed you earlier. I'm just going to put these in the refrigerator, but what I do is I rinse them off in some vinegar water for a few minutes to make sure they're clean, and I am just going to pick them off and then pat them dry and put them in some plastic bags in the fridge, because I'm sure my son and as well as us will snack on these, and they'll go pretty fast because there was only 1 container, right? So just going to take them off these stems to make it a little bit easier. I did cut and peel all those potatoes, the sweet potatoes. I have 1 batch in my air fryer now, but it was a little full, so I'm going to have to do a couple of batches. We're going to eat some of those today, and what we don't eat today we'll put in the fridge for leftovers for tomorrow or the next day. And I think that's about it. Oh, bananas, but we'll check in a little bit later and tell you what I decided to do with the bananas. So yeah, I'm just going to finish picking off this last stem of grapes here. And what I do is after I clean them, I just pick them off, right? Take them off the stems. It just makes it easier to grab a handful when you want them. And then you don't have those stems laying around if somebody forgets to put them in the trash. Or you don't have to fill up your compost bucket with those every day. You can do it all at once. Clean the grapes, put the stems in your compost bucket, and then everybody can just grab some out of the fridge when they want to. So yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the rest of the sweet potatoes in the air fryer, and then I'll come back and show you the bananas, and we'll get started probably on the blueberries. Yeah, so just a busy day here. I'll see you in a little bit. Okay guys, so we are back at the stove. You can't really see because of the angle, but I was just checking up on these fresh blueberries in syrup. If you remember it's page 144, 145 of the Ball Complete complete book of home preserving. So Basically what I did is after it sat for about actually mine sat for about 2.5 hours, you put it on the stove. And this is not a how-to, Kenny. You can check that recipe. I'm just showing you the preservation that I'm doing today. So every little bit counts. I've been watching the Three Rivers Homestead, for Fermented Homestead. So they have inspired me to do even these little batches of canning and stuff like that when I get stuff. So I've sanitized my jars here, hot, in scalding hot water. I soaked my 4-jar lids. Of course I'm using 4-jar lids today. They're the favorite, right? So I'm going to use those. Now I'm just going to ladle these in. I don't know how many jars it's going to get because I actually halved the recipe in the book. So I'm just going to ladle those in and we're going to see what we get. I did 5 jars because I don't think it's going to get anywhere near that. I need a half a inch headspace. So we're going to wait. We're going to go ahead and fill it up and then I'll go back and measure headspace. And I don't want to cook the berries. The recipe in the ball book says just to bring it to basically warm them all up. Because you want your berries to hold a little bit of shape. Later you could make, you could probably thicken this up to be blueberry pie filling maybe. Blueberry syrup. You probably could even drain the light sugar syrup and make it in baked goods. But they do have a recipe in the ball book for just preserving the berries in water if you're going to use them for baking. So that's a good idea if you're going to do that. Okay, so I don't think this is enough to get another pint out of them. So I'm just going to measure my headspace, debubble, and then measure my headspace and go from there. So maybe I only get 3 pints, which is fine because the recipe called for twice the amount of berries I had, and it said it would do 6 to 8 pints. So let me do this really quick. Let's see if I can turn you guys down so you can see what I'm doing. Just gonna go around and debubble real good. Okay. And of course now it's, and also if you see how beautifully purple it is, you know, blueberries are not always that bright purple. Well, in that ball book, it actually was on the, I'm just going to measure headspace real quick. It was actually on the page for the blueberry pie filling, but it said if you want that bright purple color, you can actually use food coloring. So I actually did. It needs a little bit more. Just slightly a little bit more. So I actually did. It tells you the recipe in there. I think it was like 12 drops of blue, 4 drops of red. That's what it was. 12 drops of blue and 4 drops of red. Yeah, so there's a little bit left in my pan, but not enough to fill a pint jar. And I don't have any smaller jars sanitized. So I'm just going to water can or water bath these 3 pints. So right now I'm going to set you down so I can wipe my lids down, wipe my jars down, and actually I'm going to measure my headspace one more time. Anyway, after I get this done, I'm going to make sure my headspace is correct, and it looks like it is. And then wipe these down, put them in a boiling water bath, put the lid on, let it come back to a full boil, and then you are going to water bath it for 15 minutes, whether it's pints or quarts, they say. So I will put these in. Remember, just showing you my process for today. I'm going to put these in. First thing I'm doing is putting my lids on here, just fingertip tight. And again, these jars are so awesome. They have not filled me yet. And put them in a water bath. I'll be back in about probably 20 minutes or so. 15 minutes of a hard rolling boil, and then 5 minutes to set in, and then we'll pull them out, and I'll show you the end result of all my processing today. Okay, so I did make several bags of the frozen bananas. We're jumping back to future now. This is me showing what's finished up. I just pulled these out of the freezer so you could see. You saw how I put these on the freezer pans and just freeze them solid. That way you can pull out just one. It's really simple. See, they're not frozen together. So this will be good for during the fall for banana bread or smoothies or anything like that. I have put all of it away except for one jar of the blueberries. So here's what they turned out with. You can see how beautiful they are. You can still see the whole berries in there. And then there's the juice. Because remember, we didn't thicken this. This is just like berries, blueberries in a light syrup. So there's that. And then lastly, I was going to show you, here are the 2 pounds of cherry tomatoes. Look how beautiful they are. Look at that. But also, look what 2 pounds cooked down to. So that's a pint jar. And I've let these have been off the dehydrator several days, but I leave them in the jar on the counter for a while to make sure none are sticking together and that they're really dry. So now I will put an oxygen absorber in here. And then, you know, this is just a reused lid, so I'll clear that off and write dried tomatoes, and that will be good for soups and all kinds of stuff. So aren't they beautiful? Oh, and they taste really good too, kind of like chips. So yeah, there's a look at what I did. And the sweet potatoes, I did exactly what I told you guys would do. We cooked them that day, we ate them, and then leftovers later. So there's that, the finished products. All right, you guys, so that is it. I hope you enjoyed taking a step back into the weekend with me and doing the food preservation, seeing how I preserve that little bit. You know, I've been watching some YouTubers do the Every Little Bit Counts challenge over the last month or so, and it's really encouraged me to do anything, even if you are just putting up 3 pints of blueberries or just a couple of pounds of tomatoes. It's really worth doing it to save you time in the long run, and also for the convenience of having that food in your freezer when you need it. So thanks for watching with me today. I hope you enjoy what you see. I hope you find it helpful, and I'll see you guys next time in my kitchen.